sort of getting familiar with the theory yourself. So the more comfortable you get with the theory and how it builds, the better you're going to be able to explain it to others. So my suggestion right now for the remaining role play folks would be write yourself out a quick schema that you can kind of look down to that kind of shows you how, like, what comes first. So again, so I would just say, the way that we grow up affects the way that we think about things, and the way that we think about things, we call that sort of schemas. And then our schemas are oftentimes influenced by the way we see other people looking at things, and so sometimes we can develop what we call cognitive distortions, or ways of thinking that aren't necessarily very functional. And then that kind of way of thinking can lead us to tell ourselves things that really get in the way for us. We tell ourselves kind of mean things that can get in the way of the way we function. So I'm kind of taking you then from early childhood experience to schemas, to cognitive distortions, to automatic thoughts. And then those thoughts affect the way we feel and the way we behave. So you might want to just jot that down for yourself so that as you get more and more comfortable with the theory, you won't need that. But in the beginning, it helps you to kind of remember what came first, the chicken or the egg, and wait, what affects what, and what do I need to talk about first? So, yeah, I picked up on a little bit of confusion about the theory, but, I think that's something that can be remedied. I thought you did a really nice job of setting the tone for the session, Rafa, especially setting limits about taking turns between who's talking, and both of you did a really nice job of summarizing and reflecting feeling back to each of the clients. I heard that both from Chris and from Rafa. And then both of you clarified kind of Teresa not feeling supportive and Nairi feeling kind of anxious about Teresa not finishing. And then you actually did a really nice job with the 3-question technique in terms of you did a really nice preface as to why you were going to ask for evidence, and it was very gentle. So it didn't seem like you were kind of saying prove it. And then a nice job with the alternative interpretation. I thought both of you did a nice job of identifying the automatic thought. Chris with Teresa and about education kind of being pointless and her frustration, and then Rafa with Nairi in terms of the education is necessary. I don't know what was Nairi's real automatic thought. It's not just the education is necessary, because that's not necessarily a dysfunctional thought. What was the thought that's getting in the way of the relationship?
Well, if you get to it more, that her actions and behaviors reflect on her.
Could be, yeah. It could be that if you don't finish your schooling, then I become a failure as a mother. What else could it be?
So protection of that she must have an education, that she
Right. So if you don't finish your education, maybe you'll be just like me, or you'll have to struggle for the rest of your life, right?
There were some others, the selective abstraction, where she took one example of her daughter taking a break and took it as evidence that her daughter was being lazy.
So if you take a break, then you're just being lazy. You're not doing your work. The other piece of it was, what was it that I had? I had one of them in my head too. Those are all good ones. No, I can't remember what mine was. We'll go with the ones you guys said, though. Those are good. Okay. Observers. I'm sorry, I didn't go to the observers. Why am I out of sync today? What did my observers see?
I think mostly we said, I know like all the concepts were there when we were trying to explain the theory, and yeah, that just takes practice too. I think I would have gotten a little tripped up too, and it's also hard to explain in a way, that's
in lay language.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and you just want to, I think what's important is getting your order right. Like, which do we talk about first? What leads to what leads to what? So you don't want to go straight to automatic thoughts. You want to start with early childhood experience and then go to sort of the larger schemas, which are the way we think, and then sometimes we can tend to think in ways that aren't necessarily accurate, and that's the cognitive distortion, and that leads us to have certain specific thoughts about ourselves that get in our way, like I'm no good, or I am stupid, and that's called an automatic. So you just kind of take it bit by bit.
I think Chris did a good job identifying Teresa's idiosyncratic meaning. I think it was about what does doing well mean. I think that's what you mean. But that was good. That could be different for lots of people. We got into a little bit of labeling distortions, like the all or nothing, but I think that was most of it written down. And you did a good job, like at least addressing and balancing, trying to find both of their automatic thoughts.
Yeah, and I thought you did a nice job of balancing each other out too. Chris, you kind of jumped in, you know, and when it was appropriate, and you guys did a nice job. Annabelle, who was my other?
Not me.
Not you? Anybody else observe? So it's just you, Gemma? Who's the other?
Are you guys missing a group member, David?
Susan.
Oh, Sue Young.
This is like at first I feel like because it's like the first step I have to explain the theories and some things.
Yeah.
I find it's kind of difficult, like kind of annoying. Like I have to to identify like what the information what's they're telling me. I have to fit as the theory.
Yes.
I have to explain this to them.
Yes.
Make it comprehensible.
Right.
So I found that part could be kind of disturbing. So I noticed that the part when Rafa was trying to memorize it.
Right.
Like after that, I think everything like goes very like fluently.
Yeah.
Because like every step seems to be very clear and like when we are going to the different part, we are going to use the technique which client might not be feeling comfortable with, and we'll explain this.
Okay, good. So going back to your point about it's hard to kind of categorize information according to the theory, it is hard, but that's what we want you to do eventually, because that's how you know what to pay attention to in a session. Because your client is going to bombard you with information, and so you have to be able to filter out what do I need to retain and focus on, and what can I let go for now, or what maybe isn't important. And theory is what helps you. Theory is your filter, and it sort of pulls in the big bugs over here, and and it pulls in the little bugs over here, and the big bugs are where you want to focus. I'm just thinking of a pool filter. I watch Dirty Jobs a lot. I don't know if you guys do. So, and that's kind of what came to mind. So, if you think of theory as your filter, it pulls information into certain categories for you so that you can make sense of everything. And then you also then use that theory, that scaffolding, and the information, plus now the information that your client has given you, and you feed it back to the client. So you understand the client through your theory, then you teach the client their information back through your theory so that they understand how they got to where they are. And then you talk about what you can do to fix it. And now that you've taught them the theory, the fix now makes sense. Do you see what I mean? Because your strategies are tied to your theory. So if I teach a client how I believe their thoughts are getting in their way and affecting their emotions and affecting the way that they behave, then when I go to use an intervention, I can teach them how that intervention is tied back to the theory we just learned, and you'll get more buy-in because they get it. You've just explained to them how they got to where they are, why it's getting in their way, and what you can do to change it, all using the theory throughout. So that's why the theory is really important in it, and it is there to use as scaffolding to understand your client, and then to teach it back to them, and then to use interventions according to the theory. Does that make sense to everybody, or is it confusing to anybody?
I think the confusing piece for me is that it seems like there's a certain amount of psychoeducation with all theories,
Yes.
and there's just so much of it here.
Yeah.
It's like it is the strategy.
It is the strategy, is the psychoeducation piece, yeah. You're essentially teaching them not to need you anymore. And that goes on with all the theories, but this is sort of a explicit part of this intervention, is teaching them the theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice job.